welcome to the Light Gate. We're coming to you live from the beautiful city of New Orleans in Louisiana at the United Public Radio Network at 107.7 FM and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 FM on the Gulf Coast. We are on Facebook, we are on Roku, we are on Rumble, and we are on YouTube. We have a very interesting, and I know you know who it is, so I'm not even going to go into that. I just want to welcome you to, as we are all welcoming spring, and I want this to be a great show. We do have a delay on us with Luigi. I guess Oregon has traffic because they're stuck in traffic, but they will be here presently. It won't be too long. And we're going to let Preston start the show, and we're going to greet everybody and get that underway. So by the time he gets here, we're ready to roll. So Preston, you got it.
Thank you, Dolly. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on episode 153 of The Light Gate. Can you believe it? Oh, shout out to Carnation, our sponsor. We love you very much. Thank you for your support. Yeah, can you believe it? Episode 153. That's 3 shy of 3 years. So that's very cool. I, of course, am your host, Preston Dennett. My lovely co-host is Dolly Safran. We're so excited to be here tonight. We're very excited about our guest, who is unfortunately stuck in traffic, but as promised, he'll be here as soon as he can. But we do have a few quick announcements. You may have noticed we had a new music intro. Let us know what you think. This is original music by our dear friend, Michael Markley. Very talented gentleman. We absolutely love the sound of that. It kind of mystical. Really fits the show, I think. Don't you, Dolly?
Yes. It has a vibrational tone of almost the beginning of a meditation. That's why I like it, because it gives you a moment of peace before we begin.
Yeah, it looks like we're getting some good reviews from other people. Okay. Glad you guys liked the intro. Do have a couple of quick announcements. Huge shout out to our 4 astronauts who have made it to the moon. How about that? It's been a long time, 50 years or something?
Yeah.
55 almost?
Yes.
So that's amazing. That is so cool. Going around the dark side, I wonder if they're going to see any alien artifacts, because I think there's a few up there. If they do, please show us. They're only 3,000 feet over the surface, so maybe. You never know.
That's a view, let me tell you. Yep.
But that is so cool. Science fiction coming to life. Amazing.
Yes, and it's the second time we've gone to the moon and circled all the way around it before the next new mission after this, where they actually land on the moon. And I am unbelievably excited about that. Just saying, I'm a NASA baby. It just almost started crying when they did it. It's like, oh, it's about time, you know?
Oh, I'm glad you guys like the music. Yeah. And yeah, Aurora Comedy Vids. NASA's never going to show it's on the dark side of the moon. Yeah, you know, I agree with you, but I still have my fingers crossed, because maybe, why not?
Enough people on this planet intend at the same time and direct your thoughts straight to those guys, you might get away with it. Ah, okay.
Yeah. We also do have some very sad news to share, unfortunately. We have lost a dear friend to the UFO community, author, researcher Nick Pope from the UK. His wife just announced that he has passed on to the higher astral planes. So prayers to Nick Pope. He was a huge asset to this field. His books are wonderful. I know some people who know him personally. A prior guest here, Bridget Barkley, I know must be heartbroken right now, because he helped her quite a bit with her own experiences. So yeah, we love you, Nick. Hope you're doing well on the other side. Very sad. Happens to us all, I guess. Thank God we're all eternal, immortal beings, an integral part of this infinite universe. So there's that, at least, to bring comfort. All right, our guest should be here, we're hoping, in about 15 minutes. So we'll bring him in as soon as possible. Meanwhile, let me just pop this up, because this is what we're going to be talking about tonight. And Dolly and I both kind of have a connection to Bob Lazar. I've been a supporter of him from the beginning. I had just started doing research in 1986. He came out, exploded onto the UFO scene around 1989, thereabouts. And I immediately started following his story. And I think over the years, he has been completely vindicated. In fact, I don't think so. We know he has, because he's given details of experiences he's had that nobody knew about. And now we are seeing them. And we'll certainly talk about that with our guest, Luigi Vendittelli, when he comes in. But yeah, he's the original whistleblower, I think, one who really had an enormous story to tell. And he
I
started.
think I took the greatest risk of all of them. That's
Yeah.
what
I think it really hit me hard that his story was real when I was talking to a contactee, Don Anderson, who said that he's had lifelong experiences. He's from Utah. And as a child was taken on the sports model craft. He basically said that when he saw Bob Lazar's drawing, almost fell off his chair because it was precisely the kind of craft that he was taken on board. He remembers it vividly. He is like Dolly, fully conscious of his experiences. He started waking up to it at age 21. Dolly was, of course, 14. Most people, it's like 30 or 40 when they start to really realize, oh my gosh, this is happening to me. I think people sort of know on some level, but it's not unusual to wake up during, midlife that, oh my gosh, I'm a contactee. I'm kind of in that category, I think, actually. I was slow in clicking to it. But yeah, that's one reason I think he's absolutely legit. What do you say, Dolly?
my first awareness of Mr. Lazar and what he was saying was in right around 2012. And it amazed me when I heard the story. And I thought, well, let me let this sit on me for a little while. I knew right away that he was speaking the truth, but I wanted to hear more, see more from him. And I started searching the internet and I started coming upon things that were already out there. And the more I heard, the more I realized that he functionally understood the craft, that he had genuinely begun access, and he would not know the things he was talking about without actually being there and hands-on seeing it for himself. As a researcher himself and a scientist, he's come up with some very good conclusions about the systems, and I'm impressed. I'm very impressed. I made a mental note at that time that I was going to back him anytime somebody brought it up to me or questioned me about it. I wanted them to know point blank, and I have always done this. I've been back there saying, listen to this man. He's telling the truth. Okay. So I've just been watching and looking for more from him. And then when I understood that this was going to happen and that this movie was coming out, I was overjoyed. And then Preston and I watched it, and I sat hard down on my chair because the graphics unbelievably accurate. I know this vessel well, and it just astounded and amazed me. He's got it right, and he understands how it operates, and that astounded me even more. And I'm not kidding you when I said before that he took an enormous, great risk. He's paid a great price for him coming out, and I'm very thankful that he did. It's needed. He is the greatest whistleblower of all of them. I want you to understand that because he is the one with direct knowledge of it. You can't usurp that in any way, shape, or form. And people need to show some respect now. I hope, genuinely hope, that everybody understands that this is not a joke. It's real.
Yeah, I mean, when they found his name in the phone book of the Los Alamos, it was clear that despite Los Alamos' denials that he did in fact work there. And of course, on the front cover of the newspaper.
Right.
That
was astounding. You know that the information that was gleaned, what's so I'm bad with names. I can remember number sequences until hell freezes over. The guy who was researching him, what was his name? The guy from Las
George
Vegas.
Knapp.
Okay, George Knapp, boy, that guy's a bulldog. Okay, with gleaning information. The government's really good at erasing people. Okay, but they were sloppy because this boy, or maybe he's that good, which I think he is, pulling information out the way that he did. He found the validity of it just by finding the things that he did. That guy had to get an award. I'm not kidding, for his research into Bob Lazar's life. And I mean, it's just astounding to me. I'm just in awe of the whole situation. I knew when I came out and started talking that I was on the wrong end of the stick for everybody, because it's really not really, you know. And then and I knew Bob Lazar was there when I came out. I came out much later, probably. I just called Preston in 2016. That's when I met him first time on the phone. And I knew I was taking a gamble by just saying the things that I'm saying. Somebody used the word woo factor, and it's true. I have an incredible woo factor behind me, and so did Bob. And I'm glad that Bob's got the legit sign hanging on him now. Okay, you can't call it anything but this. And I hope the government is ready to put him on the radar of truth. You know, I want that to come out in the congressional record. I want him to stand before them and give them his information. Let's see that happen.
Yeah, what a lot of people don't know is that Bob Lazar has a lot of witnesses. He brought them up to look at Blue Peak and had them see these craft being test driven. And what did our government do? Of course, they bought the land around that area, so he couldn't do that anymore. And Dolly's right, he paid an enormous price, and so did George Knapp.
Yes.
In fact, George Knapp had a very difficult time getting this information out. He's a multiple award winner. He's featured in the show S-4. As you'll see, if you guys haven't seen the movie, you have to see it, and you will definitely be seeing it after we talk to our guest tonight, because it is astounding. I did have the wonderful opportunity to speak to George Knapp directly. He interviewed me for KALAS Las Vegas TV, and it was amazing because I wrote UFOs over Nevada, and I knew some really good cases there. But what a treat to meet him face to face. He had a lot of pushback from investigating Bob Lazar. And in fact, at one point, he had reporters calling him the king of anal proctology. I mean, that's the worst kind of gaslighting for a journalist to do to another journalist. It's ridiculous. When I saw how much the debunkers were attacking Bob Lazar, that to me was another sign like, oh, this guy's hitting a nerve. He's telling the truth. People are coming at him hard. So the courage it takes for someone like that to come forward, I don't think most people have any idea. I already know that most contactees have a very hard time coming forward. But when you are part of this reverse engineering project, we know how brutal the folks behind the government cover-up can be. So amazing that he had the courage and the fortitude really to go forward and continue to go forward. Because he could have just spoke once and said, you know what, that's enough, I'm done. He didn't do that. So it's amazing that he came forward with this film, S-4. I'll pop it up again. Let me see.
Imagine what he was thinking, Preston. Imagine what he was thinking when he was there, and the realization hit him that the gravity of what he was witnessing and being held accountable to investigate by people who were literally dead up part of the military-industrial complex. Okay, he knew his situation was grave at that moment, and he still found a way to cut loose and speak the truth. Under no circumstances, I think that I really am amazed at him for that. I know what my life has been like. I mean, it takes some major inner fortitude and will to want the truth to be out and to know that we all deserve to know the truth, no matter what the circumstances. You know, that's I bow to him. Ability to get that through. and to stick with it and to literally, what is it, go through the tempest of storms by these people. And I can't say enough about it. I'm really happy, and I hope that I really wish him the best from this moment forward in his life. And I hope that they leave hands off him now and let him do his research the way he wants to do it, and give him the credence and the respect that he does absolutely deserve. You know, he's a
Yeah.
brilliant mind, and he deserves to be able to keep using it the way he needs to and wants to for his own sake, you know, and that of his family.
I agree. Stay tuned. I just heard from Luigi. He says he's 5 minutes or less from
Okay.
getting on, so we'll have him here shortly. But
Okay.
I think it's amazing because now a lot of whistleblowers, I think, have a lot more tools and a lot more protection to come forward, because if they are attacked, what does this do? This lends credence to their story. So often what happens to whistleblowers currently is that the government won't even touch them because to do so is to basically validate.
More. Yeah.
Yeah, it validates their story.
Some in the back side.
But as you can see in the movie, it wasn't like that in the beginning. We'll talk about that, but he was absolutely, his life was on the line. Very scary. And there was another detail in the movie, which I can't wait to talk to Luigi about how the craft kind of appears and disappears when you're looking at it. Because I have heard this from a number of contactees. And this explains why people can be in the same area and not see a craft unless you're in the exact correct spot to see it. I think Dolly knows more of the science behind that. But darn, that's interesting.
Yeah. It's magnetic lensing, light lensing. And whatever way the emitter is pointing, it causes light to bend away from it. So you're not really seeing anything there. You're only seeing background, nothing else. And it kind of it's almost like it reflects back what's behind it, but you can't see it. It's incredible. In the fact that he saw the little black hole, you know, it's not a hole, it's just a black area in front of the emitter. And it's like, I've been telling everybody on the planet since I came out, you know, a black hole, you know, cosmic black hole that's at the center of our galaxy and a bunch of galaxies all over our universe. It is not a singularity. There's something in there. You just can't see it. And it's not sucking energy in eternally. It's letting energy out of it as well. And I keep saying it over and over and over. Quit listening to these guys' stupid theories. They're wrong. You know? Thank you, Bob. Thank you. Because that backs me up. Thank you.
Yep. Duchess. All right. Duchess wants to get on the show tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
The cat will be next.
Oh, Dutch. Inappropriate. Stop.
Okay,
We
Dutch,
love
go lay
her.
down. Yeah. Back. Go lay down.
Yeah, this is by far, you know, I've followed the Lazar story from day one. There's been a lot of information swirling around him, a lot of people speculating, attacking. He's got his supporters and his detractors. I think far more supporters. Those who really know about physics absolutely understand that this information he is providing, you could only know if you have knowledge of physics. So interesting. I think if you have any interest whatsoever in the Bob Lazar story, you're really going to be impressed with this film. Particularly, it's, you know what it was like to me, Dolly? It felt like being a fly on the wall.
I wish it was in a 3D theater and I could sit all the way up front and watch it that way, you know, or I have a friend who's got a headset, you know, he watched it on the headset and he said it was incredible. Because it's like being there. I mean, the graphics, the CGI on it, they worked really hard to get those craft right. I know they did, because I kept staring at it. I was looking for any flaw, and he's dead on, you know. Oh my. And it blew me away. He really got it right. And I really hope that everybody really looks at this, and in your mind, you know, you can compare it to what's been back engineered. You know, it's nothing like what you see in the skies now. ET's not here anymore. As I've said before, they bugged out because of what's going on in our magnetosphere. It's too dangerous for them to fly against that. And that's what a real ET craft looks like. And those are just the little ones. Then there are the bigger ones, and the story goes on, and each one has its own purpose and what it's created for. And he said some things in there that are very opaque, and he doesn't describe too much into it. And I understand why he does that. There are things that I won't say either because I have NDAs, as well as the need to keep quiet. My life means everything to me.
All right. Our guest is here.
Hi there. All right. I am so sorry for being late. There's a lot of traffic. There was like tractor trailers driving at like very slow speed. So
that's quite all right. We understand. It's just an absolute honor to have you on.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Our audience is very excited.
Well, thank you for having me. It's great.
Yeah, and thanks for sending these images. I'll pop them up as I can
for sure
as we talk about this. But first, let me just congratulate you on such a job well done.
Thank
Dolly
you.
And I watched this film, by far the best ever done on not only Bob Lazar, but really the subject itself of reverse engineering.
Yeah.
Because it's so real. You're like there. Gave me chills.
Well, thank you for that. It's been a long 4.5 years, and I'm kind of excited that it's finally out in the world. So it's great.
All right. Well, baby you produced, let me tell you.
Pardon me?
This is one heck of a baby you produced. It's going to grow up into many things.
Let's hope so. Thank you. Yeah, there's actually going to be a lot of little babies that are going to come from this, because it's going to be followed up with our VR experience later in the year, and then we're coming up with an incredibly beautiful book on S-4 with all visuals. There's going to be a lot more stuff in there, and then eventually we're going to actually make the die-cast model of the flying saucer.
Awesome.
Yeah,
a life size that we can walk inside.
That would be too good. Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Right.
It's doable,
It's doable. Yeah. If I sell enough films, I might make an investment. I don't think that's going to be possible, but there's a lot of people that have asked me to do that. So if the only thing I would ever entertain is if anybody in Las Vegas ever wanted to create a tourist attraction of a flying saucer, I would certainly do a deal with them so that we sell them the plans, because obviously we have the craft, we built the craft, so we know how to make that thing. So that would be a cool thing if ever somebody in Vegas wanted to do something. So people could take a bus and go out to 51 and then come back and actually go see the craft, so yeah.
All right. Well, I just want to let you know real quick, I've been researching for 40 years now. Followed the Bob Lazar story from the beginning. Dolly's a full-fledged contactee. Major contactee, has been on board, knows this craft from the ET side.
Oh, wow.
So she's got some real insights to this. So this should be interesting. We got a bunch of questions from chat already. We're never going to get to all of them.
I can imagine. Yeah.
But I thought we'd start by just asking you how you got involved, what brought you to where you are today. Have you seen a UFO? The standard questions.
You mean the standard, how did I get into UFO stuff? Yeah. That was back in 1980. Well, actually, no. It was back in 1984. 1984. My grandfather had seen a flying saucer in 1965. And I'm Italian. My grandfather, I spent a lot of my summers in Italy, and I would, from a traditional Catholic Italian family, very old school. And my grandfather was very the traditional old school Italian Catholic, and he saw a flying saucer, and it wasn't something that was standard conversation. And when my grandfather said that to me, I was 9. I remember everybody in the family would giggle and laugh at him and say, like, that's ridiculous. There's no such things. And he was very serious. He was like, no, I saw a flying saucer. I know I saw a flying saucer. So his reaction, me as a kid, looking at my grandfather, whom I looked up to like a second father, and I knew he was a very serious guy, he would take me to church when I was young, and he would teach me all the right things, how to be with people. And I'm like, why would he start making up a story about flying saucers? That was not his character at all. So I found it very sad when I would look at him and everybody's laughing and he was not laughing. So it caught my attention because I'm like, it doesn't look like he's having fun here. Everybody's like making fun of him and he's not laughing. So it made me say, he doesn't lie. Why would he say that? I was a kid anyway. So that got me started and I started investigate. Well, I didn't investigate anything. I wanted to inform myself what are flying saucers. And I thought at a young age, I thought naively that if I bought enough astronomy books, that I would eventually figure out things about aliens.
Yeah.
And I ended up becoming well versed in astronomy because as a kid, I was a geek. So I would whatever allowance money I would get, I would buy. I still have them, astronomy books.
Yeah, me too.
So I was reading about space and the cosmos. And at the end of these books, sometimes they would have like 2-3 last pages that would talk about potential life in the universe. And I was always excited at those last pages because sometimes they would put drawings of a flying saucer.
Yeah.
But there was nothing really there. So I thought, I'm on the wrong track here. I'm not getting anything. I'm always talking about, it's great. The universe is beautiful, but I want to know about flying saucers. So being a Montrealer in Montreal, I eventually would go to Plattsburgh, New York with my mom, and my grandmother would drive me and my sister on weekends to go to Plattsburgh, New York, which is like very nearby. So we crossed the border to go shopping because the US has better stuff than Canada, especially back then. Still the case in some cases, but anyway, so we would be there and I found something of MUFON when I was out there. I remember I was in a bookstore and it must have been something I found about MUFON. I came back, I bought it, came back, and I applied to be a member of MUFON. And I eventually became a member in 1980. I believe it was end of 87 or early 88. I can't remember exactly. But I know that I ended up becoming the youngest member of MUFON in the world at that time. And it was, I don't know if you remember, Walt Andrus was the guy who was in charge of MUFON at a certain time. Yeah. So he wrote me a letter and saying, you're the youngest person. And I thought, oh my God. And that intimidated me because I thought, shit, did I do something that I shouldn't have? Like now I'm a kid. Maybe I shouldn't be part of this. So, but I started getting the MUFON journal and I started reading about cases and I started going to local MUFON chapter gatherings. And my father would drive me there because I was still very young. And he was always wondering, what's my son doing with all these people with white hair? And, I clearly didn't fit the mold of that group. I was like this young guy, but I was super interested. I was really like, finally, I'm getting information on the topic as opposed to stars. And that got me started. And that eventually, over the years, I became national director for Canada for MUFON. I was in charge of all investigations for whatever cases were coming in from MUFON Canada. But I eventually got really bored of that. I didn't enjoy it at the end. I thought it was monotonous, repetitive, just the same thing all the time. They saw something in the sky, you note it, it's in the CMS, MUFON has CMS system.
Yep, been there.
But, yeah, but you never really get to anything. There's really no outcome. It's like, do you have a picture? No. Do you have a video? No. Okay. Write it down. Okay. Interesting. Most of the stuff was misidentifications. So a lot of times I was the party pooper telling everybody you didn't actually see ET. You just
they
saw.
Don't like that, do they?
Yeah. So I kind of got tired of getting criticized because it felt like people wanted me to confirm their delusion. Well,
yeah.
Like, oh, I'm sure I saw a flying saucer, and it's like, or a UFO, and I'm like, no, you didn't. You didn't see a UFO. It was clearly not a UFO.
Today, there's a lot of that going on today.
I can imagine. I can probably even more because it's a topic that's being talked about even more. So I kind of took a step back away from the daily investigations. I didn't want to do that anymore. I had done that for a long, long time. And I felt that my basically what I could bring to this space was something a little bit different. And I wanted to learn a little bit more about contactees, about abduction cases. So I spent years researching that and then eventually got trained personally by Dr. David Jacobs for a period of 2 years.
Wow.
So
Wow.
David trained me. I used to go to his house all the time, or he came to Montreal too, and I got to learn a lot with David Jacobs, and it was a really, really very, very important time for me because I was very dedicated to understanding the abduction or the contact reality of this phenomenon. You know, nuts and bolts is very interesting, but what I was really fascinated with was if there's nuts and bolts, and I was convinced there were, well then who's manning them and why are they doing it,
What's
right?
inside?
What's inside, who's inside, why are they there, for what purpose are they there, how many different types are there maybe. So you know, more questions started piling up, and I got very lucky and was able to become very close friends with one of the witnesses from the aerial primary school incident in Rua, Zimbabwe.
Wow,
And so
nice.
I spent 10 years of my life researching her experiences, because things had happened from at aerial, and then subsequently she had multiple experiences after that. In fact, many of those kids also had multiple
Was
experiences.
that Emily Trim you're talking about?
Yeah, Emily.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
God bless her. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Emily passed a year and a half ago. And so we were always together. You know, when sometimes I look back and I think she's not here, it's surreal for me, because
Yeah.
I wanted to share all this with her. When I was doing the film, she knew I had started working with Bob Lazar, and she was happy for me, and she was always supportive. And I always said, we're going to do something after I'm done with this. We're going to do something with you. And she never made it. So it broke my heart. But if you've seen the film, Emily is the last frame of my film. I
noticed that. I
Yeah.
did see that. It's
Yeah.
amazing. And
Yeah.
just saying, she does know. She knows.
Oh,
don't.
I'm sure she does. I believe that too. I'm sure she does. And I hope she does, because I loved her very much. She was a very close friend, and I cared about her. It broke my heart what happened to her. You know, she was far too young to have gone so quickly. Luckily, the only positive is it happened fairly quickly. And that's the only thing I can say about something so horrible, because nobody should go through that. Cancer is a horrible thing. Brain cancer is even worse. I lost my father with that. So having lost Emily in the same way I lost my dad was kind of me reliving the loss of my dad at the same time that I'm losing a very close friend. So that will forever be engraved in me, you know. So I hope that whatever I do with all this and all this work I'm doing, that I could at least do something that elevates people's attention to these realities in the world that are not to be laughed at. They're very real, whether they're nuts and bolts or they don't look like nuts and bolts all the time. But it's real. A lot of it is real. I wouldn't say all of it. There's some stuff that maybe isn't, but there's a lot of real stuff. And it's important that the world really starts paying attention to this very seriously. Yeah.
So you heard about Bob Lazar? Were you following his story before you actually met him?
I mean, when Bob went public, I remember I was I think I was 13 years old or something like that, and 13 or 14, and I immediately I remember I received this book, and it was a photocopy of a whole bunch of cases, and he had come out on the radio or in Montreal. I had heard him on the radio because MUFON had played him on the radio. I didn't see him on TV right away. Then I saw him on TV, and I thought, this is interesting. Like, you know, it always captivated my attention. I mean, Bob Lazar's story captivated the world's attention.
Yeah, let's face it.
And you know, there's a lot of people who didn't believe the story, rightfully so. I mean, that was a lot of claims. There was a big claims there. I mean, you know, he was basically saying things that a lot of people have never heard of before. You know, the government is in possession of intact craft, and there's multiple craft, and the U.S. Navy is involved, and it's at Area 51, and it's actually not at Area 51. It's at this place called S-4 near Papoose Lake, and these were all a lot of claims, and it made a lot of people very uncomfortable, including Stanton Friedman, who looked into the Bob Lazar story. And Stanton used to be very hard against it because he says Bob is not a physicist. There's no, documentation to support that. I was friends with Stanton Friedman. I still had an amazing amount of admiration for Stanton Friedman, but I think he was very wrong when it came to Bob Lazar.
Right.
And
I want to tell you something. Okay, this is personal to me. I hope you understand why I'm saying it. My father never went to college. He taught himself everything he knows. He had a functioning IQ of 200. He became an architect and an aeronautical engineer, and he ended up working for NASA as well as many other. He was literally part of the military-industrial complex. I grew up in that. Okay. Mm-hmm. When I was watching, and my dad absolutely knew who Bob Lazar was before I did. And when I found out, I went straight to him and said, why didn't you talk to me about this? And he said, it wasn't time. You were doing other things. I needed you to know when you knew, And I asked him point blank. His educational background doesn't point at this. And he said, look at me and tell me you believe that he's not qualified to do this by why they hired him and what he can produce. And I went, okay, I get it. No problem. Lots of people in this country and the world, very intelligent people. Look at Einstein.
Yeah.
If you have an IQ and you can teach yourself, you can learn anything.
Absolutely.
And I really understand that he does this.
I'm actually speaking to you from Bob's lab. I'm at his, lab.
I can see.
Wow. So I can assure you that he is an incredibly smart man. He does very interesting stuff. When it comes to the naysayers, where it's like, he can't be a physicist. He doesn't have a degree. You say your dad. I will say, there's a famous composer, classical music and opera composer called Giuseppe Verdi. Okay, anybody who knows Verdi, I'm very familiar with Verdi. I grew up listening to Giuseppe Verdi, and he's probably one of the best ever. And for anybody who knows that story, he was kicked out of music school because the teacher said he wasn't good enough, and ended up becoming one of the greatest composers in history. So, when I hear people attacking a person because they don't have a paper to show that they know something, it's the equivalent of somebody who accuses you of wearing, I don't know, a piece of clothing, and they say that's actually not authentic. Why? The tag doesn't have a hologram on it. Okay, I ripped off the tag. I mean, so what about the actual piece? So there's a lot of people who give a lot of importance to things that we often, and I think that's where we stumble. That's where we stop in evolution, is that there's a lot of smart people out there that have an amazing way of thinking, of developing things, but we're stopping them simply because they don't have a paper. And I find that to be unfortunate that that's the way we judge the world, because
one of the things I really liked about this film is because you essentially proved his story. You know what I mean? Presenting some of the evidence. Everything from the little cards and the handprints and even little details that I, as a UFO researcher, talking to a lot of contactees about how UFOs operate, like when he walked under it and it disappeared.
Yeah, that's right.
And saw it.
Yeah, because it bends the light. It bends light. Yeah. So I mean, there's things that people will never accept when it comes to the Bob Lazar story, and I've also come to accept the fact that it's actually not an argument I really want to engage into, because in fact, Stanton Friedman, speaking of Stanton, and God rest his soul, he used to say something that used to hit really well. He says, people would say, I don't believe, don't argue with people who've already made up their minds.
Right. So they'll take the shoe from you and hit you with it.
Exactly. So if somebody doesn't believe in flying saucers,
let them go. That's right.
Let them. I mean, they've already made up their mind. It's not. You're not arguing facts. They have their ego that's in front of them, and they don't want to tell you you're right, maybe I was wrong. They don't want to do that. They want to be right no matter what. They want to say, no, this is not real. Okay, well, you can go on in life and keep saying that.
Yeah.
It doesn't change the fact that it's real. I mean, it doesn't change it. So
right. Well, what I'd like to do is towards the last half hour, which is not, we're not even close there. I want to answer some of the questions from chat. I'd also like to go through some of the images
sure
that you sent us and get your comments on that.
Sure, absolutely. Anytime you want to do that.
Yeah, in a little bit, because there's still so much to talk about. I'm really interested in how you approach this film. And what was it like working with Bob Lazar? Because I watched you on the Joe Rogan show. That was really fun to watch.
Yeah, that was fun to watch. Bob and I got there. We both were on empty stomachs because we didn't want to feel lethargic on the show, so we didn't eat much before going there. And Joe poured Bob some whiskey, and oof, that hit really hard because empty stomach.
Sure, empty stomach, straight to your brain. Yep.
So Bob was like, "Oh my God, I wasn't expecting but I also found that to be so endearing to him because he's so willing to just let down his guard and just be himself, and I thought that was great. So, but yeah, the Joe Rogan experience was real interesting this last time. Yeah.
All right, so. Gosh, I've got so many questions. What was your goal with this film? I mean, like, what were you hoping to create?
Well, I think the way it started, it didn't just happen. It wasn't just going to be a film from the first day. So it wasn't a film when I first reached out to Bob. The first thing happened was I wanted to make a die-cast model of the sport model flying saucer. I'm a merchandiser. Other than UFO research, I have to pay the bills. So I have a company. I'm the president of that company. I'm a merchandiser, been doing it for 25 years, spent 15 years of my life back and forth in China, did a lot of work in international countries, and I've made products for the NHL and a lot of different brands. I own the license to the Montreal Transit Commission. So I do a lot of stuff in merchandising, and I wanted to do something really special in this field. I wanted to create a professional collector diecast model of a real flying saucer, not something that is from a science fiction film, but something that somebody witnessed. And I thought, which one would I do? Which one should I look at? Should I look at the Travis Walton one? Should I look at the Phoenix Lights? Should I look at the Belgium triangular craft? Should I look at obviously Bob Lazar and so many other cases of flying saucers? And clearly it wasn't long for me to realize that Lazar was the only person who had inspected the interior of the craft, not inside of an event. So there's people that have been abducted and brought in the interior of a craft, but they're dealing with an event. Something is happening. So they're what they're looking for or what they're looking at is seen in a different scope. Lazar was consciously just there to figure out how does this thing.
A trained observer and a researcher, and it gave him absolutely plenty of time, to work out the dimensions of that craft, work out systems, craft everything. And as a scientist, he absolutely scoped it properly. I mean, he has a very good knowledge of the inner workings of that craft.
And so for that reason,
I'll be right back.
Sure. Okay. And so for that reason, it was important for me to find a flying saucer that I can have a lot of detail about, and that also would include the interior. And so I did a lot of research out there. I read everything I could on flying saucer, about the sport model flying saucer that Bob Lazar witnessed. Yeah. And there was a lot of information. There was a lot of contradictory information that didn't seem very accurate, and I was trying to get the right information. So finally, I said, let me give him a call, and let me see if he'd be interested in helping. And I called United Nuclear, where he works, and I spoke to Zach, who works with him, and I said, look, you guys don't know who I am. I am essentially a nobody to you, but I'm a merchandiser. I've done a lot of work in the past. I know what I'm doing. I would like to recreate a flying saucer. I would like to make it in a die-cast model. And I would love to have the opportunity to correct all the information that could be potentially wrong online and actually work alongside Bob Lazar, just so that we could have it as accurate as possible and we can get a stamp of approval on it. And essentially, Zach said, look, I don't know if he's going to talk to you. I'll relay the message. I sent a whole bunch of links of my website and work I had done. And I said, look, show him this. I'm a real guy. And I got a call back from Zach, and he said, yeah, Bob will talk to you. So I guess he must have been impressed with something I sent, because I clearly showed that I was able to do this. Got on the phone with him. Immediately for me, it was like, oh my God, I'm on the phone with Bob Lazar. This is just this is just a cool thing. And so we besides the pleasantries and stuff, we started talking, and he started interviewing me. And he started telling me, like, how would you do this? If you did this, what kind of materials would you use? What kind of processes? How would you do it? And why do you want to do it? He was really concerned that I had some, I don't know, either didn't know how to do it or had some ulterior motives.
He's a smart guy.
You have to understand that when you've been through what he's been through, correct? Right. Everybody is suspect in your life after that. I've lived it. I know. I don't let anybody in my life without knowing everything I can about the situation. It's a reflexive action on my part now, because I've been in some serious situations with this.
I've seen it.
And so, yeah, he was checking you out. You were under the microscope.
He just wanted to make sure, like I can do this. So I must have answered everything right, because he immediately said, all right, you sound like you know what you're doing. Come and see me. And I thought, oh, well, I'm not going to waste my time. I bought a plane ticket right away, flew out to Oregon. And I said, if I have a chance to sit with Bob Lazar and really make this happen, I am doing this right now. And so came out here and sat with him and was able to sit with him for a full 2 days. And we went through every possible, detail of the sport model. And I left with so many notes. In fact, one of the things that's really important is that when I first met with him, I asked him, could I record the conversation that we're having so I could have that as an audio reference? So, because I couldn't write so fast. There was a lot of things that I had to write. And he actually said, he goes, you know what? I would respectfully ask that you don't record, because a lot of people will use things. And he goes, I would rather. And I said, fine. Obviously we had just met. So I just had a million notes, and obviously I took pictures of materials. We had examples of kind of, textures of things and all that. So went back to Montreal, spent 2 months putting it together. We have a book this thick. It was like 200 some pages on the sport model. I had 178 questions to ask Bob, because we had, as we're building it, we're like, oh shit, I forgot to ask him that. Question for Bob. And then, forgot this, another question. So I had 178 questions. And I thought, you know what? I called him. I said, instead of doing this back and forth, and it was a lot of technical stuff, why don't I come back there? We'll blow through this real fast. In a day, we should be done. So I came back, spent 2 days, finished all that. He was impressed with the book. He was like, oh my God, this is incredible. And I said, I'm very serious about this. I said, I want to do something very good. And that was what catapulted the project, because now I was saying, well, if we're going to make a model, and the model will be like maybe 15 inches in diameter, it's got to come in a box. And I thought, why don't we make the box look like the hangar that it was in?
Clever.
And I said it would just look really cool if it was, a big collector piece. I'm not talking about cheap stuff here, something really high quality. And he said, well, sure, it's a good idea. And so he had to start telling us how the hangar looked. And so we started building the hangar in a 3D environment. And long story short is that became the beginning of us literally building the entire S-4 facility, because as I built the hangar, now we wanted to build an image of the adjacent hangar, and then we wanted to have a little image of the hallway. And then I thought, and then we would occasionally show him little, very, very, he was getting upset with me because I wouldn't sneak peek. I wouldn't give him any peaks of what we were
Yeah.
he was like, you gotta show me, you know. I'm like, wait, it's not done yet. Yeah, it's like, you know, it's like somebody's cooking and you're not done, and like, let me taste it. Well, it's not finished yet, you know, like give it a sec. So
Strategy, yeah.
and so anyway, that ended up being like a thing where we started showing him stuff, and he's like, oh my God, this is incredible. And we thought, Bob, if we were to go ahead and build the entire base, and we would go and build all the assets that were there, the workbenches, the equipment, the oscilloscopes, the jiggers, everything that was inside the hangar, we would build the adjacent hangars, the adjacent crafts of whatever he remembered. Would you, and the papoose, like the landscape, I said, if I invested this money and I invested my time and I have all my team do this, would you be on board with us to do this? And he says, well, what do you want me to do? I said, all you have to do is guide us. We're going to do everything. You just tell us, no, that's wrong. Yeah, that's right. You know, that way it's accurate. And basically that became the beginning. That ended up becoming the beginning of this documentary, because we started building the facility. And then once the facility was made, I said, Bob, I'm going to need you to explain these things. And would you do that on camera? And he said, sure. You know, like that. I mean, he was so impressed with the result that he says, I think this is really worth it. It's an opportunity to correct all the wrongs out there. You're doing it right. This is what it looked like. So what started off as a model ended up becoming a 4.5-year journey for myself and everybody on my team involved to basically create the most realistic recreation of possibly what was the most secret installation in the world back in 88 and 89. Yeah. And we were very, very dedicated to making sure that it was going to be as accurate as possible, that Bob Lazar would vet every single piece of it, everything. There would be no embellishments. There would be no additional stuff that was not part of the story. If something was boring, it was boring. If something was not exciting, that's how it was. I mean, the reality is, if you're going to tell the story and you have to tell it accurate, Bob would tell me, Luigi, most of the time Barry and I were in the lab and we didn't really do much else except for taking notes and testing the system.
That's how science works.
That's how science works.
So, when you finally finished the soup, so to speak, and cooked it all up and showed it to Bob.
So I was in Las Vegas. So we were in Las Vegas. I took Bob. We had to meet up with him because at this point we had interviewed Bob Lazar. I have over 80 hours of interviews with Bob Lazar, but I interviewed Bob Lazar, and then I had to start interviewing George Knapp. I had to interview Mario Santa Cruz. I had to interview Joy Lazar. I had to interview other people that were there. Well, the people that were there is Gene Huff, George Knapp, and Mario Santa Cruz. By the way, Gene Huff that's in the film, I cannot stress how extremely important that is. And I love Gene. Gene is an incredibly amazing person who was very, very suspicious of who I was when I first introduced myself. Obviously, he was like, who the hell is this guy? What does he want to do with your story, Bob? What's because he cares about Bob. And eventually, he and I became close. We would have our Saturday morning talks every morning on Saturday, 9 a.m. Las Vegas time, noon Montreal time, spend 3 hours on the phone talking every day, every Saturday, until he and I kind of hit it off and we were getting along. And I said, Gene, would you be in my film? And he says, absolutely. And that's what Bob Lazar said. He says, if you convince Gene Huff, you've essentially you've done it, and that was a big deal. So I had to go to Las Vegas to interview Gene Huff and interview George Knapp. And while I was there, we invited Bob so that he could be part of the interviews. And we had the goggle. Because this is a 3D environment.
Yeah.
Whether you use that environment for cinematic shots like we used it for a documentary, or you use it for a virtual reality tour where you actually could walk around, it's the same environment. It's just utilized in two different ways. So I took the hanger. I had I had Christopher Matteau on my team, which, by the way, a big shout out to Christopher Matteau on my team, because he's really the master of the universe of VFX. And I asked him, could you put the hanger in here with the sport model so that I could show Bob when I go to Las Vegas, when we go to Las Vegas. So Bob is with us, and I said, you're going to go inside the hangar for the first time here since this happened. So we put the goggles on Bob, and there's a video of this somewhere, and he's just looking around, and he's like, oh my God. He says, it's like you downloaded that from my brain. And he says, you got it. It's exactly like that. And that to us was a gigantic relief, because we were like, we got it. You know, like, it took a long time. And then from that point on, we perfected things. We perfected the base, the hallway, the other crafts, and all that. And we had and so the film was actually supposed to release in the summer of 2025. As a lot of people know, we wrote that on our poster, and I made a big announcement. And I'm not going to get too much into that, but I will say that there were a lot of bad things that happened to us since we had posted the release in summer of 2025. And a lot of things were done from very, very questionable people in the entertainment industry trying to squash this.
Yeah.
I was going to ask. So, yeah, where was
so there's a lot of bad people out there, especially in film distribution, and I was very disappointed. And I was also I was also, as much as I was disappointed, I was also entertained by how they thought I had no experience in business. I think they expected that I was this, guy who just believes in flying saucers, and I decided to make a flying saucer movie, and they would start sending me these contracts that were basically written by, I don't know,
lawyers,
4-year-olds, and thinking that I was just going to sign away my rights and here you go, do whatever you want. So I had to protect us, and I had to protect my company, my crew, the film, the integrity of the whole story. They wanted us to change a lot of stuff in it. They wanted us to delete scenes and include other stuff that nothing to do with the story.
You were write your narrative. Yeah. I want to tell you a secret about Hollywood that most people sort of know, but I'm going to dead up call it. Okay, they are a front for them. They are the mouthpiece of the military-industrial complex when it comes
for sure.
They want to know, and they are that exactly. I mean,
the CIA and the military industry, I mean, obviously the DOD, CIA, government, whatever, they have a say in what's out there in the, what's propagated as entertainment, whether it's science fiction or science fact, doesn't matter. They want people to kind of see what it is that they want us to see. So I kind of felt that. I did feel that. I felt it on a bigger scale at a certain point where there was, at one point, I'm not even kidding, we were being told, you need to remove these scenes, and you need to put the tic tac stuff, and you need to put the stuff of the Navy pilots. And I'm like, what does that have anything to do with Bob Lazar? I don't understand why I'm even talking about the tic tac.
I'm so glad you stuck to your guns.
I know. Kudos to you for that, because your intellectual property, as far as Bob Lazar is concerned, with him, is yours, and nobody has to
and I remember going, what is happening? Why do you want that to happen?
It's like the mafia. They're going to tell you what you're going to do.
So I essentially was their party pooper. They were trying to screw. Yeah, and I eventually said, like, no, actually, we're not going to do business, and I'm going to take more time in making sure I get this out to the world the right way in its original format, and that's why it took longer. And so, for all of the people that waited, and I am eternally grateful for everybody's patience. I'm eternally grateful to everybody who's supported us since the beginning. So I can't stress that enough. I'm very, very I'm very humbled by the comments that we're hearing, that everybody loves it, and I'm thankful that everybody stuck around and waited for this to happen, and I'm happy that they like it. So
Well,
that's
sometimes the timing works out. You know what I mean? Because it's a really good time now for this to come out with all the congressional hearings.
that actually worked out in our favor. I mean, look where we are. It's an interesting. It's a different playground, you know. So
well, it's really going off like an atom bomb. So I'm very pleased for you. But maybe we could do the images now.
Sure.
I sent quite a few. I didn't get all of them, but I certainly picked the most interesting, I think.
Sure.
We'll start with this. This is the actual couple.
Yeah, this is like one of our favorite images. I mean, this is the hangar. We accidentally stumbled upon this picture. We were turning off lights in the hangar, and as the lights were being turned off, we forgot to turn off the lights in the adjacent hangar. You can see it on the left side there, and it just made this beautiful lighting scene. And I was like, stop you know. And even Chris was just on the looking at the computer going, oh my god, that's such a nice look. And I said,
you know what it looks like to me? Because I've seen this in real life. Okay, it looks like a dark night with no clouds in the sky and a full moon, and it coming down, and that's what you see. That's exactly how you see it in full detail.
So Dolly, you've seen this craft?
Yes.
Huh.
Absolutely.
Where did you see it?
Miami, 1973. I was 14.
Wow, really?
They pulled her on board this craft.
I saw the little teeny guys, you know, that sit in this thing. They're AI grays, and they are biological AI, and they fit. They're that small. They fit in those seats.
Yeah. And, well, I want to get to that image, so I've got to. You know, I want to bring Dolly on a certain few parts here. Yeah. But yeah, let's go through this because there's quite a few images. And
I also want to ask, I know that Bob Lazar has seen it fly, okay? And one of the things that didn't get mentioned that I have a question about, a serious question, because when I saw this craft, it came down over our house in behind us. And I was in my room, and I had huge jalousied windows, huge. I could crawl out them. And there was a tree right there. And I was watching it come down in the atmosphere. I was like determined to really see this thing. And I was making mental note of it the whole way. And when it came down, I noticed that it doesn't hold stasis. It can't sit perfectly still. It does this. It'll
wobble,
sort of sway, and then bob sometimes. Like
it's so you've seen that. You've seen it wobble.
Yes.
Oh, that's so interesting. That's actually, that's what it does.
That's it does. And then it bent down just enough for me to see into the port windows. And I saw the two grays staring at me, one in each window. I was like, and I thought, no, I'm not ready for that. And I tried to turn and dive under my bed. And that's when the light hit me in the room, and my adventure began with that when I was 14.
So you actually saw the craft do this?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
That's really
it's always a full-on content. I vetted her story for 6 years.
Yes.
Essentially.
Yeah. I know how they all fly, all of it. And I know what's on the inside of that thing. I do.
We'll get to that. But so
this is the "They're Here" poster, by the way. This image that you have here, this poster, if you've seen the film, if you know the story, there were posters inside S-4. One of them was in the briefing room, and one of them was in the propulsion lab of this exact poster. Wow. And it had the sport model flying off the ground, just a few feet off the ground. Wow. And it literally said, "They're here." And, you know, Bob always laughs at that. He says, I have no idea who did that, why they did that. But he said, I can't omit it from the story. It was there. So it's really cool. And we now have these posters available, obviously. Yeah.
Very cool. Wow. All right. Moving along. Talk about this. This was an interesting detail.
Yeah, this is the reversed American flag on the craft. Yeah, this is right by the hatch, and to the left of the hatch, there was this reversed American flag that he saw. It's big. It's about 9 inches in diameter.
That configuration. Do you know what that means to the military?
Yeah. The reverse flag is usually it's put on the right side of a uniform or on the right side of a vehicle.
Moving forward.
Moving forward, and the wind is blowing on it and blows the flag. Yeah, correct. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Is there any other significance? I mean, to that?
I mean, other than that, you know, Bob said something recently, and it was really, really interesting. He said, you know, maybe he never saw the door. He never saw a door to this thing. The hatch was
There
open.
is no door. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's the
and he
hatch.
basically, yeah, and he said maybe the hatch was hidden inside the material of the craft, and so
It was.
once it closes, there's
You
no
can see
more. There's no seams.
It's totally
And he said,
seamless. Yeah.
yeah, and maybe the flag is there just to tell them where the door is. You know, it's
Might
like,
be.
oh, well, the door is just a few inches to the right of the flag. Maybe that's the reason why that was. Yeah.
That might have been interesting.
I can't get in. Okay, yeah. I get it.
Wow. All right. Of course, here's Bob with the
Bob
element.
himself. Yeah,
What's the name of the element?
element 115.
115. Okay. Let's see here. And there's Bob with the power plant, right?
That's the reactor. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the actual reactor that is that was inside the craft. That was also inside the lab. That's what he and Barry worked on most. Yeah.
Right. I'm amazed. Has he had any physical effects from being exposed to that? At all?
Physical? You mean like health effects?
Yeah, health effects.
No.
Yeah, good. Okay.
Never mentioned anything of that. No.
All right. I'm gonna bring in the next. Oh, well, here's the.
Well, that's the reactor opened up, and that's the
Yeah.
element.
See inside it where you put the element.
Yeah.
All right. And then there's this.
That's just a great shot. That's just
Yeah.
landscape. You know, you've got the hangar doors hidden in the mountain, and one of the hangar doors is open, and you could see the craft there.
So this is pretty much accurate to what he saw then.
Oh, absolutely. That is exactly what he saw. Yeah.
That's what I loved so much about this movie, Luigi. You were there with him, walking beside him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
seeing it
what
happen.
this is. Again, it's like a historical document at the same time. I mean, of course it's entertainment, of course it's fun, but having something accurate like that and vetted by the person who's seen it, in a way, for our research field, this is kind of historical documentation, because now you have a visual of exactly what was seen.
Exactly. All right. I've got a few of these images here of the doorway. So how accurate is this down to the last detail?
I can't see the image now. It's not shared on my screen.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, there.
Is
Oh,
this
there it is.
accurate down to
Oh,
all
that-
the little details?
That's 100% accurate. Yeah, that's like 200% accurate. That was the final. That's the final scene right there. Yeah. After that took us 4.5 years to do that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, this does not do justice to the actual film where you're walking through this and going.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane watching this film. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, we even made the Joshua trees. This is like the camera. We put the camera near the Joshua tree here, so you see it in the background.
Right.
The Joshua tree is also handmade. I mean, everything was handmade in the film.
wow. Very cool.
There you
So
go.
these are
Yeah.
just more of these images. All right.
Yeah.
Tell us about this. I'm gonna get the dog. She's going
Yeah.
crazy.
This is just this is the interior of the hangar with the hangar door closed, and it's just a cool shot of the craft sitting
Yeah.
there. You know, there's nobody there, but that's pretty much.
And I like how you've got the lights on it, and the craft is reflecting the lights overhead.
Yeah.
They're very reflective craft. And I'm
Yeah.
glad you're showing that.
You could see that. I mean,
Yeah.
like, you know, in 3D environments, the light is going to do exactly what light does.
Right.
So what makes this also really realistic for visuals is the fact that the majority of the rendering power that is required to make this looks, to come out with the right renders, it's all lighting. Lighting is what makes things look real. And
Yeah.
so whenever you see this, all the shadows, the lighting, the refractions, reflections, that is
It's like you're standing there looking at it yourself. You go from 2D to 3D, it's great.
right. Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's just tremendous. I mean, it's absolutely. So
These
we're
are just extra shots. I provided a whole bunch of stuff for you guys to have if ever you wanted to share. You're free to share them. These are, that's with the door open on a sunny day. And the crowd sitting there. So yeah.
wow. All right. There's a couple of them we're coming up to that are just so cool. Oh, well, here you are with Bob.
Yeah. The same place I'm at now. Yeah.
He seemed like a very nice man.
He's awesome. I love Bob. He's probably one of the coolest guys I've ever met.
Now, did you actually go out to Area 51 and get as close as you can to it?
I did, not Bob. We went out to the desert in Nevada. We did film together out there, but we were not near Area 51. We stayed away from Area 51, but I did go there with my crew, and we went to the back gate of Area 51. That's as close as I got. I mean, that's as close as anybody could get.
They openly watch you, or were they hidden?
Oh yeah, they were watching us, you know, and I mean they don't really get annoyed. They know people go out there to, you know, it says no photography, yet everybody who's there take pictures. So
remember, they almost tried to storm Area 51 a few years back. Remember that?
That would have been a really stupid idea. Yeah.
Very.
Yeah.
All right. Here's another kind of interesting.
This is actually me. This is at my studio during COVID. I was researching his story, and I was recreating things. And our tables at the studio, you could write on them and erase. And so I decided to make my own drawings and real size of the, you know, Bob would tell me the reactor is this size. And so I made a drawing of it, and I was basically doodling and trying to come up with concepts. And these are pictures I took right at the very beginning. So for me, I look at this and I'm like, my God, this has come a long way. So,
all right. I'm getting really close to the picture I really am interested in. Here's you and Lazar.
That's me and Bob when I first sat down with them. Yeah. I had a little bit more hair back then. Yeah.
Here's your lovely crew. Amazing.
Yeah. That's actually
the time machine. Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted
DeLorean.
to.
Yeah.
We never used it in the film. We were supposed to use the DeLorean. We never used it. We're going to be using the DeLorean footage in our VR experience that's going to follow later this year.
Yes.
So I had an idea. I thought, I want to bring people back to 1988. I want to do it in style. What else would be better than using an iconic 80s vehicle that goes back in time, like, you know, the DeLorean time machine from Back to the Future?
Right, actually.
So the guy who's there, the guy on the right, you could see him with a cap on the right behind Veronica and Vanessa. That's the guy who owns the car. That's Chris Sanford. And he was amazing. He let us bring the car out on the dry lake. We weren't supposed to drive it until we kind of begged them. We said it's kind of boring just to like look at it and take pictures. And eventually he was like, found it really cool that Bob Lazar was out in the desert with his car and said, all right, gun it. And so we filmed a lot of cool stuff in that car. Yeah.
Oh boy.
You guys look like you had a lot of fun doing all of this.
Real cool monkeys. Oh my goodness.
All right. Now here we're in the inside.
That's the interior of the craft. Yeah.
So these are the little seats, Dolly, you were talking about.
Those are the tiny seats. I mean, they're not more than 18 inches high. They're about 15 inches wide. And they pretty much just to an adult person, it probably the edge of the top of the seat reaches your knee at most, you know. So it's a very small seat. It's a very small piece of it. And again, Bob Lazar keeps saying, and I'm always fascinated. He says, maybe they weren't seats. He keeps saying, he goes, maybe they weren't even seats. Maybe they were just a piece of equipment that looked like seats. But he says,
what do you say, Dolly?
No, they sat in them. There were three there. There's a reason that three of them sat there with that unit, because they weren't flying from that position at all. But they were watching that thing, and they were responsible for keeping it, you know. In other words, if you're running a nuclear reactor, you got people watching that thing at all times. Okay, they don't necessarily hands on to it, but they are observing it and making sure that nothing happens. That conduit that comes down is only laying against that thing. And there's really the environment that they're in is 100% protected. They're in a field, okay? They don't even feel gravitational forces in there, okay? Yeah. But what if something dire happens? They need to be there to protect that unit.
Right, okay.
And so that's why they're there. And they're little teeny guys.
Yeah.
Absolutely teeny guys. I've told Preston, I've seen there's more than one type of AI
Yeah. But
B.
here's the question, which Bob asked in the movie. Why is one seat right in front of the column?
Right. Well, yeah, basically what Dolly's saying is there's somebody that's always guarding it, basically looking at it in case of anything. It's possible. I mean, it's possible.
I'm going to send you the book I wrote about Dolly because I want you to really understand
Sure, I'd love to
where
read
she's
it. I'd
coming
love
from.
to read it. Yeah.
But my question is, how tall is this? Are the dimensions in this as Bob remembers?
Oh, absolutely. If you were standing next to that middle seat, your knee, the seat would reach your knee. Your head would be possibly touching. How tall are you, Preston?
I'm 5'10".
So yeah, both you and Bob are the same. So the top of your head would be touching the ceiling.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Very
But
cool.
as soon as you walk towards, if you want to get out, it immediately you have to crouch down because it curves. So you can only stand when you're in the middle.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Here's just a close up.
Yeah, these are just close up shots of the interior.
There's not a whole lot in there, really. It's very sparse, which is exactly what I hear from contactees. There's no real controls because from what I understand,
you never saw any controls. You never saw anything else, and
they're psychically driven. This is why, because it's absolutely done from the mind of the ETs themselves.
I mean, it's
the contactees.
Who knows? I mean, it's certainly either it's psychically driven or either there was something in there and they had removed it and he never saw it. We don't know.
No, there was nothing in there. I have a question for you. I want to bring this up because this impacted me greatly. When he turned his head and he saw that area,
blue screen. Yeah, the blue screen. Yeah,
and he saw the symbols in there.
Yeah.
And they directed him to turn his face away from it.
Yeah.
One of the things I know about these crafts is they're like the AI, engineered AI that are biological. This craft can function almost biologically. All right.
Okay.
And there is a being that's in that craft. It's not somebody from our dimension, it's from another one. Okay. And they indwell this craft, they become the mind, and the craft becomes the body of this thing. Okay.
Person. Yeah.
And it let me know immediately when he said that it still had the onboard individual indwelling that craft. And it was trying to communicate with him. And if he touched it or if he saw it long enough, it would have communicated with him. Okay. Direly would have. And the reason that they had guards and kept telling him, don't look. They knew that about it already. They had already come to those conclusions. They were very well aware of what that thing was capable of doing. And it's dang. Because if he had, it would have been 10 times the story you got. Okay. Because it would have impressed him immediately.
If in fact that's what's going on, clearly, if in fact that's what's going on, clearly there's a lot missing here. You know what I mean? Obviously, there's a lot. I mean,
there must be hundreds of people who've studied this thing, if not more.
I mean, clearly there were other people there, and I mean, he wasn't there for a very long time, and he admits that there must have been working on this for a very long time prior to him being there. He makes a lot of comments in regards to the fact that he was surprised that it was so nonchalant, that it was kept in an aircraft hangar. It didn't have, he keeps saying it, you would think it was like the lunar receiving lab where everything would be white and you could see a pin drop. And this was like a standard military hangar. There was dust on the craft, desert dust on the craft. It's like, for him, he says something told him they must have been there for a long time and got so comfortable with this thing, because I mean, we shouldn't treat something like that way. It should be kept in pristine order, and and so.
Did he have any speculation about where they got this craft?
He doesn't know. He said, see, there's a lot of speculate. Well, obviously they made him read documents. That there were blue documents that had a lot of information. He doesn't give those documents a lot of importance, regardless of the fact that they were part of the story, and we did include some of that information in the film. But he always says that was just, those were just words on paper. They were not, this was not hands-on experience. So the only thing he can confirm is what he saw, what he touched, what he experienced. But anything else where they're saying, you know, they came from Zeta Reticuli, it's a binary star system 30 light years away, or that they found one of these in an archaeological dig in the water, which is reason why he believes the Navy was implicated and was in charge of all this. But those are all things that are speculative. I mean, there's no absolute, he didn't see that happen. Right. So he's very cautious in not wanting to claim something, because right. He says, I don't know if that's real. Is that document? Maybe
right.
They just
stick to the facts. Absolutely. Yeah. Understood. Yeah. Understood. Because there's a couple other things in there that I saw that blew me up. You know, the top hat that was up on its side?
Yeah.
There are things about that I know that I don't know if Bob's aware of or not. And I'm going to say it. I know he couldn't. If he does, I don't even want him to come close to repeating what I say. Okay. Yeah. This is me saying it point blank. Mm-hmm. Those two shots through it, the rim, that was them trying to blast it open. Okay. And all they got was those two holes. It still wouldn't open the main compartment. And what they figured out how to get in, is they dipped it in liquid nitrogen, froze it, and it cracked open. Okay. And they had it up on its side because they couldn't lay it flat down anymore because of what damage they did to it. That's what he was looking at in that thing. And it was away from him. And if he had walked around it and got to see the belly of it, he would have seen there was huge damage to it.
My question, Dolly, is how are you getting the information?
I am connected in ways you can't possibly imagine. When I say that my father was in the military industrial complex, I'm not joking around. I'm also very, very well aware by ET. I communicate with them very well.
Which I can verify. I've seen the craft. I've seen her medical records. I've talked to her witnesses. I was taken on board her craft as well. I had my actual firsthand experience. With ETs. So she's the real deal. I've talked to a lot of people. So
since when, Dolly?
Since I was 14 years old. When I was 14 years old and I became 100% aware, I managed to do what I had to do. They offered me the ability to learn how to control craft and fly it. And it took me 4 years.
All right. And I want to get to the questions real quick at some point because we've got a half hour left. But you know how Bob was never shown the top part of the craft?
Yeah, the top. He never.
Dolly knows about that as well.
They fly it from there. That's where they are. That's where they fly from. They don't fly from the middle. They fly from the top. They're up there. So, and they didn't let him see it for a bloody good reason. He would have been baffled even more, because there really isn't. There's a way. It's a big deal, and they hold that secret to absolute. And they would never have shown him that. Never. And if
he obviously wasn't shown that. He was only given access to the main level and the lower level. So yeah.
I want to put up one more picture. This is the doorway.
That's the access way. Yeah, that's the hatchway where you could see the center floor and you could see just a little bit on the lower floor. Yeah.
So the question is, like I said, there's no actual door.
That's very cool. Yeah.
And it's smaller than for a normal human too, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's a tight space. A person can fit through the hatchway to go on the main floor, but you can't go to the lower floor through that hole. You have to go through the honeycomb hatchway that's on the main level there. There's like a little hatchway that you can open. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, there's just one or two more images, because you did something that was really clever in this film, which is kind of age regressing.
Yes.
Turning into skinny Bob. That's kind of my joke.
Isn't that great? Doesn't that look like Bob?
Is that CGI, by the way?
Yeah, that's a mix.
I love that. I think that is fantastic. I'm glad you didn't use AI. I hate AI. I can't stand it.
We used like three different softwares for that. It took a while to get to that stage, and it actually took us a month of back and forth until we got that, and we were really happy with the result. It wasn't an easy process, let me tell you, but I will say though, now AI is mind-blowing. Now there are AI softwares that could probably do what it took us months to do, and they could probably do it in a prompt now in terms of age regression, but not age regression, in terms of replicating that image in movement, but they can't do they can't do consistency. Let's put it that way. It's still a hard thing to do. Yeah.
All right. So before we get too far into it, where can people get this film?
All right. Well, the film is available right now on Amazon Prime Video. And I'm really happy to say that if you go on Amazon today and you go into what's trending, we're right up there next to Avatar. So we're really happy. It's doing really, really well. So S-4 is available on Amazon.com, Prime Video. And it's also available on wearenot.alone.com, which is our channel. And you could go check that out. And that's, and if you get it, if you subscribe to our channel, wearenot.alone.com, you're going to get even more stuff. You get some behind the scenes, extended interviews and stuff that you don't get on Amazon. Yeah.
I'm just so excited for you. Excited for the world, really, because this has been a long time coming. We deserve to know the truth. Exactly like Bob says. This should not be hidden. I mean, it's insane to me that been going on for that long. Okay, so now let's pop in some questions, if that's all right.
Of course, let's go. Yeah.
Let me see. I wanted to get Heidi Hansen's question in. No, I am not even seeing it. Darn it.
For the orange. Oh my goodness. Look at all the wow. Holy cow.
Let me just say, hold on. This is from Foggy Notions.
I'm going faster than you. Hold on.
He says, huge congratulations. Film is a masterpiece. Finally gives Bob respectful, high quality telling he deserves. Loved your appearance on Joe Rogan. What was your favorite moment on the Joe Rogan?
On Joe Rogan, our favorite moment, it was, well, my God, the favorite moment on Joe Rogan was when Bob said, I'm a little drunk. That was 100% our favorite moment, because we all kind of laughed about it together and we said, yep, those empty stomachs of ours really made it. But it was such a cool, it was just a cool moment because, you know, even Joe loved it. He says, my God, you're just a normal guy. You're not even caring that we're in an interview, which makes him so human, makes him so normal person. If you're trying to deceive the world, you're not going to go do that in front of the entire world on camera.
Right.
So, you know, it actually validates him a lot more, in my opinion.
All right. Let's see. Foggy Notions has a lot of questions. So here's another one. Project Gravitaur nailed it. Definitive Bob Lazar film. Any new details come up there that didn't make the documentary?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. That's going to be revealed. We're going to be, so for everyone listening, on our We Are Not Alone platform, okay, we are presently working on additional episodes. We're going to be making mini docs that are going to follow this documentary.
Oh,
we have so much information and interviews with Bob and everybody, with George Knapp, with Gene Huff, and we're going to be making a probably an hour and a half doc just on the craft, just on the sport model. And then there's going to be another one on the landscape and the Nevada test site, the Groom Lake, Papoose Lake. And the one thing that didn't make it in the film is the fact that we discovered and found hard evidence in maps from the United States government not Google Maps. No. These are Department of Interior. These are government maps that prove 100% that in 1941 there was a road that went right into where S-4 is located, right? That where Bob said was located.
How did that map come to you?
It took us a long time to find it. It's kind of hidden inside the archives at the United States government, and it doesn't even mention. It's kind of like a hidden map, and I think it's done on purpose because it's the only map that is in existence that is available through the government that shows clear as day there was a road that went right there, which in what we understood was the building of a large shaft for a mine. So that was in 1941. So to think about the fact that if the government wanted to build a facility hidden inside a mountain, why not use an existing mine?
Yeah, time is of the essence would
Yeah,
be their
so it's already there. It was already dug out. Why not use it? Why not modernize it? You know, and create what Bob experienced, what Bob saw. So the unfortunately it didn't make the film. We found out too late when we discovered it, and believe me, I would have wanted it in the film. But we will be making an episode specifically to show all these extra pieces of data that corroborate the story. Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah. Amazing. All right, here I found the one from Heidi Hansen. It was a lovely question. Thank you, Heidi. She says, good evening, fantastic guest. The Bob Lazar story is an absolute masterpiece. Hi, Luigi. What was your top experience in creating this masterpiece?
Becoming friends with Bob Lazar.
Oh,
yeah,
that's awesome.
That I think is the highlight for me. If I walk away with not making any money, but I have a friend, I have a new friend, that is the highlight for me. I got to meet the person. I got to know him as a human being. I got to know who he is, not the UFO Bob, but just Bob Lazar. We got to become friends because I think we both realized that we're not lying to each other. I could smell a liar from 1,000 miles. Okay. Bob Lazar is not a liar. And Bob Lazar, not only is he not a liar, he doesn't exaggerate at all. So if something, he could have exaggerated. If he wanted to create a story, he really made it very boring, to be honest, because there are a lot of boring parts to this. Of course, the craft is incredible. There's a craft in a hangar, but it's really boring. Nothing's going on. There's no, they're not doing anything that could be like, you know, cinematically used to do something crazy and get more people to go, oh my God, look at that. Nothing's going on. They're just staring at it. They're just taking notes. They're moving the reactor. All right, turn to 20 degrees, see what happens. Nothing, write that down. You know, so there's a lot of stuff that he could have embellished, but didn't, because he says that's not what happened. Right. So he's not a person. And that to me was very, very, very much the reason why I chose to go so far into this project is I really trust Bob Lazar.
Yeah.
And I think that
with Preston, with my story, I gave him 6 years. He knows my family, he knows my friends, he knows where I worked. I gave him all my medical records. I gave him everything I possibly could. It's not about, see, I know this about Bob. It's not about him specifically. This is a big deal. And that you wake up one day and you realize this has to be told. It's not right for humanity not to know the truth. And it becomes almost an obsession in your mind when you have information like this. It's like, please, it's not about me. You don't have to embellish the truth. The truth is big enough, you know?
Right.
That's how that
must have been so scary knowing that, you know, there was an explosion prior to him working on all of this.
Obviously somebody got killed. Apparently somebody got killed, and that was clearly a big red flag for Bob, because he thought, what if this happens to me? I mean, they didn't know what they were working on with. In fact, you know, this is something that if somebody's lying, okay, you know, and to all the naysayers out there, if anybody's listening, because there are a few that just got their degree from elementary school and they're going out pretending that they know what they're talking about. If somebody is lying, why would they put it in a context of the concept of I'm working on something scientific, we're trying to figure out what it is, but we don't know what it is. You don't start putting so much emphasis on the danger that it had. You basically say, oh, we couldn't figure it out. Your lie would be about we're not smart enough, it's too advanced, something that we can't figure out. But this was not just we couldn't figure it out. We were scared to do anything with it because we didn't know if anything we did could be self-destruct for all we know. So way of explaining what happened, the things that were being experienced, that he was experiencing while there, clearly indicate something of someone who had the experience.
Yeah.
That there was fear, that there was concern, that there was worry, there was a lot of stress and anxiety in the place. By the way, we didn't make it so gloomy, but he said it was a horrible place to work at. So he said it was not a good environment. It was very toxic. It was very military. They said it did not feel like a science operation. It felt like a military operation at all times. He said there was a soldier next to him all the time. If he had to use the washroom,
he went with him. That's
guard,
right.
The guard would be standing right next to him. I mean, those are things that I think, you're saying these things because you experience them. You're not coming up with those little details in a lie. If you're lying, you're going to come up with some bullshit about how cool the craft was, or what it did, or a sound it did, or a light that turned on, or you're not going to start making mundane things important.
Right.
It just didn't feel that to me. There's no attempt to lie here. And of course, while I say this, you got a thousand naysayers all rolling their eyes going, oh, he's so naive. You could say that, but I'm not.
No way.
You did the actual research, so they can say whatever they want. And I've talked to some whistleblowers, and they said exactly that. It was miserable, very stressful. And the one I talked to, he said he got out of it. He couldn't take it.
Right.
They took him right out of high school. And
I believe that. I believe they'll take you right out of high school. I believe that, actually. Yeah.
It speaks to the mental fortitude of Mr. Lazar. Okay, I'm going to give him a respect here, because it took an extreme mental fortitude on his part to even do what he did to come out with this and speak about it, because I understand that he knew very well what it meant for him to do this. And that everybody needs to pat him on the back a little bit and show absolute respect to him for this. You don't come out and tell stories like this and draw fire for no reason. And that alone said the truth.
Especially, Preston and Dolly, both of us, but all three of us were alive in 1988 and 1989.
Yes.
Talking about UFOs was not a popular thing to do.
No.
Okay.
So I could clear a room pretty easily. Yep.
Absolutely. So, to all these brand new researchers that are online just hating on everything, they weren't there in 89. They weren't there when this was really not popular. Now it is. And that's why they spend their time hating on UFOs, because it's popular and they can get clicks and they can become, they can have a following. But back then, when you talked about UFOs, flying saucers, government projects, secrecy, you were considered a complete nut job.
Yep.
So for Bob Lazar to have done this because he was going to benefit from it, how?
No. No.
It's always a rude wake-up call for people.
Anything until 2016, and it took me a while to make the decision. I'm not kidding you. I was very reserved about it, and it took me a while to just open up to Preston. I couldn't just blurt it all out at one time, because the woo factor, I'm just going to use that word, I didn't want him to think I was completely insane, and I needed to be able to prove
it's like pulling teeth. Luigi, you wouldn't believe the names people have called me. Every name in the book would just make your toes curl. Ugh.
I mean, I've already started receiving some of those, so it's we're never gonna get rid of them, so might as well embrace them and hope that that they get some watercoloring time at home and they could start watercoloring and playing.
Or better yet, buy your merch so that you can make some money.
Actually, you know what? I don't want them to buy my merch. I'd rather them not buy my merch. I'd rather keep my merch for the people who should have my merch, and they should. Yeah.
All right. I think we have time for just a few more questions. You kind of already answered this one. Do you think some of the documentation Bob read at S-4 was a deliberate?
Absolutely, 100%. Yes, 100%. Yeah. In fact, not only do I think so, I'm pretty certain some of the stuff was a misdirect, and so does Bob. And in fact, even Barry would tell Bob, sometimes they put some very bad information in there on purpose. So
Right.
there's no question that there has to be some misdirect in there. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. Okay, let's see. There's another couple of really good questions here. Hold on one second.
There's a lot of people in here tonight. A lot.
Good.
Okay.
Great.
Here's one. What does Bob's work at S-4 suggest about kind of clean energy future we could have if this tech was released? Any insights Bob has on free energy tech?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't. I'll have to say, and to everybody, they might not like my answer, but I don't think that we're ready for it, to be honest, and I don't think that it's something that we could benefit from it in long term. I think 100% the world would benefit from it. It's 100% a great technology.
Yeah, we weaponize every technology we ever get.
I think that that's the problem. Is I think that immediately, if the government, if the first thing the government would do with a drop of water is figure a way to drown you in it. Okay.
Yep.
So, the problem is that we're going to use that and we're going to find every possible way to hurt people with it or control people with it and not utilize it for the benefit of people. And that's the reason why I'm not saying I don't want disclosure. Oh my God. Of course I want that. But I'm also a responsible adult. And I'm like, we're in a world where look at what's going on. We're even in we're essentially, there's constant wars. People are hurting people. There's a lot of tragedy around the world and a lot of abuse, and it's terrible. So a technology like this is just another weapon.
Right.
It's not going to be, like, oh, we're just going to use it for good. Okay. How?
It's dangerous. It's dangerous anyway. It's not tech that it's a dangerous tech. As you said, everybody was terrified of blowing up in there. And trust me, they had every reason to be worried about it. It is not safe. And in the wrong hands, it's really not safe.
Yeah.
And,
it's kind of in the wrong hands already, in my opinion.
Preston, I'll agree to say that there's clearly smart people involved in these programs, clearly, but yeah, I'll agree that it's not. It might not have started in the right hands. That's what I think. I think it started in the wrong hands right from the beginning. That's my opinion.
Wow.
You're right.
To pry it out of somebody's hands is hard. If I had that technology, you would have to really kill me to get it, because I'm not going to let that go. I mean, I think every human on Earth, if was given this technology and suddenly somebody says, give it to me. Hold on. Wait a second. Why? So because it's a danger. Somebody can use it against you. You could have good intentions, but other people don't.
You realize this is children on the playground bullying each other.
Yeah. That's it.
We're not knowledgeable enough yet. We're not evolved enough yet to handle this in the proper way. And they're overstepping evolution, literally doing this. And they've proved exactly what it does to people who aren't ready for it.
Period. All right. And let's face it, us doing the wrong thing is an old story.
Yes.
So, I mean, history.
One other quick question. Was there anything you asked Bob that he says, I can't talk about this?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I could say that there's a big part of why he can't talk about why he was at MIT. I've had at length discussions with him about that. I know that he went to MIT. I can confirm that, but I don't have evidence of that. But I know why he can't bring that up, because there's national security issue there. So he can't bring it up because he would be prosecuted or possibly prosecuted. And in addition to that, he would possibly put a lot of people in danger or at risk of being sued or being dragged through the coals like most people get dragged through the coals if some of the stuff is revealed. So there's things that he can't bring. He's not going to bring up in the public.
All right. Well, we're pushing the end here, but I have to bring up this picture because people are asking, what's the death ray here?
Yeah, I'm actually sitting in front of it. It's behind the computer, but yeah. It's a kick-ass thing that Bob, I believe he sells them at United Nuclear, but you have to have a permit or something. There's something about this. It's not a very
be licensed, right?
Yeah, it's not a safe thing. It's not like something that you give somebody, go, yeah, try that out. No, you don't do that.
Yeah.
But this thing will, without making any sound and without producing any light or sound or vibration, will burn a hole through wood at any distance instantly.
Wow.
I mean, I've seen it happen in front of me. He's done it a couple of times, and it's like, holy shit, I didn't know that existed.
I have about 20 questions about that, but I want to ask on air.
So it's a really cool gadget, but I think it's made for people who are using it in special controlled laboratory tests sorts. And it's just a beautiful product, by the way. It looks very nice. It's this glass tube. It's beautiful.
Intriguing.
And I had asked him if he can make me one, and he said no. I cannot make you that. So
all right. Well, we literally have like 2 minutes. We're pushing all the way to the end here because it's so amazing. Any last words you want to give to our audience? You can find the links in the show description.
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate it, Preston and Dolly. Thank you so much for this, and to everybody who's watching, thank you for listening, and thank you for your support. If you do support us, I invite you to go watch the film S-4, the Bob Lazar story. It's on Amazon Prime. It's on Amazon Prime Video. You could rent it or you could buy it, and it's also on wearenotalone.com where you could buy it. And you can also get a lot of behind the scenes stuff that you won't get on Amazon. But I hope you guys like it. I hope you enjoy it. It's 4.5 years of hard work to bring you the story in visual format.
I loved it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I've seen them all. This is the best. So thank you.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks, Luigi. Dolly,
thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
You really got to go.
Luigi, I want to ask you a question. Do you have like 5 minutes after the show to stay on with us? I got a couple of things I want to ask you.
Sure, no problem. Right. Go ahead. Yeah.
All right, everybody. This is the most wonderful thing you could probably watch in your lifetime. It's as good as the moonshot, as important as the moonshot, in my estimation. So please find a way to see this S-4 and deal with it the best way you can and understand this is the truth. Thank you all for joining us on the Lightgate. We are coming to you live from the beautiful city of New Orleans in Louisiana at the United Public Radio Network at 107.7 FM and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 FM on the Gulf Coast. We are on Facebook, we're on Roku, we're on Rumble, and we are on YouTube. I want you all to go have a wonderful week. Think about what we talked about tonight. Rewatch the show in case you missed something and you wanted to hear it over again. It's available to you. And have a great week until next week. We love y'all. Night, night.